What our new intro music, honey?
We got intro music. Oh, yeah. It's Julie and the Painter.
That's funny. I like it. No, I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's very festive.
Today, I thought we'd talk about emotional intelligence.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, we actually have. So, but it's very it is kind of interesting. I knew that it existed, but I didn't know it was like a thing that everyone was, there's like the IQ and the EQ. I didn't know about all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
see, now I think calling emotional intelligence EQ is reaching a little bit,
I don't know,
because
honey,
IQ is intelligence quotient.
This is emotional quotient.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Well, why wouldn't it work?
I just don't think there's a quotient out there.
Well, intelligence.
It'd be pretty hard to measure.
Oh, it is hard to measure. There aren't as many. It's a little more subjective.
First off, let's tell the audience what emotional intelligence
Well,
is.
why don't you tell them, honey?
Well,
I don't like opening up with that because I don't know exactly how to answer that. I mean, I don't know that there's a definition that we need to be clear on.
Emotional intelligence, it's basically the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions so that you can extend that same awareness towards your partner.
Oh, very nice explanation. I like that.
Does that
Good
make
job.
sense?
Mhm.
Before we get too far in, if you're new here, welcome to Julie and the Painter. We're glad you found us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss future episodes. And if you've been here before, you know the drill. Comment, share. Let's get into it.
You want to tell them why we've been kind of looking into it, or why it's kind of been our little project
Well,
lately?
we're writing a book, and we hit an area where we wanted to write a chapter. Not the whole chapter's not about emotional intelligence, but we're writing about communication, and we believe that emotional intelligence is an important piece of that.
It absolutely is. Yeah, I didn't exactly know that it was a thing, that we had to call it that, but clearly, being aware of your emotions and being able to deal with your own emotions in an emotionally mature way, is essential, I think, to having a healthy relationship. And then being able to communicate that together is, I'm kind of fumbling here, but I guess if both people don't kind of have a high emotional intelligence or a high awareness of emotions, or that's not really a priority to one or both partners, I think, relationships get into a lot of trouble. I think it is an essential component.
Yeah, I think you need to, if you're going to have a decent relationship, you're going to have at least a reasonable level of emotional intelligence, or you could also say emotional awareness, right?
It is, I think, more than awareness, but it is a component, yeah. I think that it does. Your emotional intelligence, especially as it relates to inner relationships, is going to grow and develop over time. So I think you do have a little bit of an advantage when you're older. There's no question.
Oh, I think so too. I think being an older couple, once you've been married for years and years, you kind of start becoming aware of little things that give away how somebody's feeling.
Yeah, and how you're reacting too. So one of the first things you have to be aware of to be good at emotional intelligence is to just kind of have a self-awareness of the things that you're good at, the things that you need to work on, and be really okay with that. I was kind of joking with Jason, saying it's not like if somebody said to me, "Hey, Julie, you're or my partner, friend, whoever, you're not very good at time management or." or cleaning house. It's not like I'm going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you would say that about me.
I wonder why you always come back to the example of cleaning house.
I'm not good at it, and part of it is my ADD. It bores me. But the other thing is, we could talk about that. I like having a clean house. So that's been something I've had to deal with. And in the context of a relationship, it's not a bad example because then you have to deal with how bad am I at it? How big a deal is this to my partner? And then what do we have to do to work through this? Is this this something that's going to, impact our relationship in a negative way? What do we need to do to work through this, right? Now, whereas if I was really defensive about it, and I've learned it doesn't really do me any good because I suck at it. I'm not a total pig, but I don't enjoy it, and I'm not obsessive about it. I have a very procrastination, oriented, or, my personality can have a very large procrastination component to it. So I work better under pressure, whether it's cleaning house or doing a project for work or whatever. I work better under pressure, always have. People always say that they work better under pressure. I think they just get to the point where it has to get the fuck done. So I don't know
Yeah.
that they
No, I
I
think
don't know that
that's
it's
true.
better,
Yeah.
but it's I don't know that it's better, but it's necessary. So unfortunately,
It's kind of like saying I'm more likely to do it if I have a gun to my head.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is kind of like
yeah.
that. So we're off topic a bit talking about my ADD and cleaning habits, but being
But
aware of what
but
you're not good at.
sorry
That's
for
okay.
interrupting.
Yeah, that's okay.
I did like what you said though about that. That was really smooth to say. My personality has a procrastination component. That's
Yeah.
smooth.
No, I can be a procrastinator to the point that it has been a detriment, at some points in my life, and I've had to overcome it. That's the beauty of getting older. If you do grow and change and improve, hopefully. We're a little bit off topic, but we've talked a
Yeah.
lot about when you marry someone, there has to be a level of understanding of who that person is. People can work on habits, people can grow and change and improve, but they're fundamentally not going to be a different person. And if you're thinking that they're going to grow into this better, more wonderful, more mature person, I guess it happens sometimes, but for the most part, people don't fundamentally change who they are. And I think there has to be a general level of acceptance of who you love and marry. And then getting through that growing and changing part is kind of where the emotional intelligence, see how I brought that all together?
Oh
Kind of
yeah,
where
nice, smooth.
kind
Yeah,
of where all the emotional intelligence and the mature communication comes in, right?
sure. Now they say that having good emotional intelligence starts with self awareness. Why would you think that is?
Well, like I just said, I mean, so the first thing is if you know what your strengths and the areas that you need to improve are, then you don't feel attacked when you're working on them together. And I think I have a pretty high level of self-awareness. Maybe I've said this many times. Maybe everyone thinks that about themselves. I don't know, but I definitely know what my weaknesses are, and I'm not really afraid at this stage in my life to be open about them. I just interviewed for a job where what did she, when she asked me about something, I was like, yeah, it's not my best thing. I'll be honest.
Right,
I mean, I
right,
probably
right.
won't get the job, but
Yeah,
I said, if this is the number one thing you're looking for in a candidate, I'm not your person. I'm much better at this, and this. So,
yeah, and that's good to be honest, man.
well, it's just I'm old enough that it wasn't life change, but anyway, if you are self-aware, then dealing with those areas is not as difficult. I have definitely been in a relationship, and quite honestly, I always hate to generalize, but based on my experience, I mean, men, I think, tend to have lower emotional intelligence or different, but men, what I want to say is they seem to be more defensive about being. Men have to be like strong and leaders, and the person who is they're achievement oriented, and having talking about their weaknesses or having someone bring up the things that they're not so good at. I feel like in general they're more defensive than women.
Yeah, it could be. And then you've also got that part of men's behavior where we always want to fix things, and that mentality doesn't work well a lot of times with deep conversation.
I mean, I think depending on what you're talking about, for some men, talking about their weaknesses or the things they're not good at is painful and hard.
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, it is for everybody, but my experience in life has been that it's particularly difficult, for men. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
Yeah,
It's
no,
very
I
sexist.
personally don't have a problem because I have no weaknesses.
And I've also been like, I feel like we're going on a little bit of a tangent now, but I've also been in relationships where that defensiveness was really a problem. So I think
Extreme.
self-awareness is essential. I mean, you think I have a pretty good self-awareness, don't you?
I think you do, probably better than me. I struggle a little bit and I know because sometimes I can start getting aggravated and I'm not really sure why, what it is about this situation that's really getting on my nerves a bit. And I think that is a struggle with self-awareness. But I'd like to go back to emotional intelligence. One of the things I've read about self awareness, and I believe it, is that you have to be pretty self-aware to understand your emotions, how they impact you, so that when you're dealing with your spouse and you're trying to recognize her emotions, you're better connected because you understand what she might be feeling like because you felt that yourself before.
Yeah, that makes sense. When this becomes like a part of your relationship, you start to understand kind of each other's triggers. I mean,
Yeah.
you understand that. Okay, I get that because I know that she had a little reaction to this because this is upsetting to her. Or this maybe made her think of this, and the same with you. I if
Yeah,
I
and I think we all have certain
hmm
triggers, and it's helpful to understand what they are because you can kind of navigate around them a little bit. And I think triggers or emotional triggers, it's a product of our history,
right,
right?
it's a
It's
price.
something's happened in the background, or maybe repeatedly with a certain thing. So anytime that comes up, it's going to put us on edge.
Right. So let's give so examples of this might be, and these are not personal examples. I'm just throwing them out there so that our viewers might have a better understanding of what we're speaking of. If say you had an emotionally distant parent, and I'm not no, these really are not personal because I wouldn't say that I had,
No,
and then say your spouse is ignoring you, or you feel like it's really clear that you need something from them, but they're kind of ignoring you, and then you get that becomes a bigger issue than it is because you can't just say, hey, I really need your attention. It's like your trigger, right? It's like your trigger.
yeah.
Or so like I have, my mom moved away when I was growing up. So I have some like abandonment, things that I work through in therapy many times. But there are little things that I pick up on. Any tiny slight feeling of rejection or can make me feel insecure. And then if somebody leaves, like even if you go on a business trip, I have this kind of feeling of anxiety, but I know
Yeah.
that, I know.
And I'm aware of it too, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and we work together on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what emotional intelligence is about. And that's a pretty good example, probably.
Thanks, honey. Yeah, kind of
You know,
understanding where that comes from. But the hard part is working through this stuff. This one.
it's helpful to be able to recognize your partner's emotions. It gives you a leg up on conversation and even behavior, what to do, what not to do, what to avoid, what to steer around, how to talk based on certain. Yeah, but I think the toughest ones are the more subtle things. Yeah, because like sometimes like a trigger, for example, doesn't just sit out there and glare at you. It's subdued. It's behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Other things are easier, right? Like I can tell when you're mad because a shoe comes flying across the room and I have to duck.
I've never thrown a shoe at you. That's funny. But I did used to be a little bit of a fit thrower in my younger
Yeah,
days. Yeah, as like yeah, in my not in this marriage at all. But to show that you can grow and change, I just want to bring.
yeah. No, you have done well with that. Yeah.
There have been times when I have my little fits, and I would throw something or kick the wall or something that absolutely did not help the situation at all.
So here's a little thing about emotional intelligence. It says emotional intelligence is about empathy, self awareness, and the social skills that allow us to connect on a deeper level.
Hmm.
Let's talk about empathy just a minute. What the hell is empathy?
Empathy is when you feel something deeply because you can understand how someone else feels because you have felt that same kind of pain,
It's kind of like putting your shoes in, or what's that saying?
Yeah,
Putting
yeah.
your feet in their shoes or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Putting their shoes on your feet.
And there are some things, yeah, that are absolutely you can't really feel them the same way that they did unless you felt them. But yeah, so empathy is that, right? It's when you feel something deeply because you really have been through it yourself, where you understand where that feeling is coming from, and it's more than sympathy. Sympathy is just like, oh, I feel so bad that you are going through that. And empathy is more like, oh my God, I've been there. This really sucks. Like for instance, I lost my previous husband, to cancer. So if somebody was going through, something horrible like that, could feel, extreme empathy for how
Uh,
challenging it would
Yeah,
be.
that makes sense. And then I think that out of that statement, I said, that emotional intelligence is about empathy, self awareness, and social skills that allow us to connect on a deeper level. The social skills part, to me, that's what it's all about. I mean, emotional intelligence, you really wouldn't care if you didn't have to develop your social skills. I mean, your social skills are what you're using in the marriage to, talk to each other and work through things on a daily basis. And
I think it's really important, and I thought we talked about this a little bit earlier. When you are deciding whether to be in a long-term committed relationship with someone, kind of having an awareness of emotional intelligence, what it is, where you are kind of on the spectrum, and where your significant other is important. Because one of the things that always really made a big impact on me in my like sociology studies, very minimal sociology studies, but I love that shit. Um, is when they would talk about, most people that end up together have similar values, grew up with a certain, grew up within a certain proximity of each other. Now that probably has changed some with social media and such, have similar IQ levels, similar level of attractiveness. It's not very often that these things are way off kilter. When you marry someone or when you're with someone who is not very emotionally aware, doesn't really like talking about their feelings, doesn't really like working through these things, doesn't want to do the work to figure out how to work through these things. That's something you need to be aware of. I think having people that are close to the same level of emotional commitment and emotional intelligence is going to be the best scenario for a successful relationship.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept.
Because I've seen in many relationships, and I would say this. I would say this in my former marriage. I can just say I'm fine with saying this. He was incredibly intelligent, but that was more difficult for him than say it is for you. So that was definitely something in our relationship that we didn't work through quite as well as you and I do. It doesn't mean that our relationship was shit, but it just means that it was. I always say complicated. It was harder because
Sure.
we weren't kind of on that same level of commitment or ability to be where we needed to be. I think. Can you think of times that we've kind of struggled, or can you think of ways that we've gotten through areas of struggle?
Yeah, I mean, we've had struggles. We've been married long enough that we've hit our moments of friction. One of the differences between you and I, when we get in any type of a conflict, you're the type of person that very quickly responds. If I say something, it's an answer back immediately. I'm the type of person that I need to digest what I just took in, that stimulus of whatever was said, and I need to process it for a minute. If I get really stressed, that means what I really want to do is wait before I respond and give me some time. And that could mean walking into a different room or doing whatever. And I had to learn your trigger with that behavior so that I could modify that.
Oh, that
So
makes sense.
see where I'm going?
Yeah, yeah, because that is true, you
Yeah.
guys. So if Jason was even a little bit upset, and he does the few times that he's been more than a little bit upset, yeah. So that's what he likes to leave and regroup. But because I have my kind of abandonment issue, so the worst thing for me is like if I sense that someone's upset with me and that there's distance, and then they leave, that makes me feel a little freaked out. So I've had to learn to adjust to that too.
Yeah.
And honestly, one thing that you do really well, and you'll say sometimes like it's not you, like if you're mad about because your cooking didn't, or but you still don't recover from that well. You're still mad,
yeah.
or if you've had a bad
Yeah.
day at work, or if you've had a bad day at work, and I'm kind of asking you questions about your day, or but for you to just be like, I'm not happy right now, but I just need some time.
The good part is I'm slow to anger.
Very slow, I would say, yeah,
But
very
the
slow.
bad part of that is I'm also slow to recover from it once I do get chapped.
Yeah, and the things that might upset you sometimes aren't, and that happens a lot with couples. I think it's something that you need to be aware of. The things that upset your partner might not be the same things that would upset you,
Right.
and sometimes that doesn't make sense to you. You're like, really? That's what you're upset about, and that maybe that's the straw that broke the camel's back or whatever. But that's something I think that you learn and kind of get through over time. There haven't been very many, but anything that's been really significant, I feel like we've worked through in a really healthy way. And some of that, honestly, I'll be on, was just luck for us. It was just luck and experience. And I think one of the things it was that we both hate that feeling of not being close. So I think we're both pretty motivated to figure out what's wrong and make it better.
We want it resolved by the end of the day and be
Yeah.
back connected.
Yeah, usually by the end of the hour. I
Yeah,
don't like it at all. Yeah, we don't
because
like it at all.
we both like that connection.
For sure.
So,
And Jason's right. I am much more of a reactive. I react and then I'm over it. Like when I talked about having my little fits, well, that's kind of what it is. It can be nothing to do with a relationship, moment of frustration. But I
it usually has to do with picking out an outfit
sometimes,
to wear.
yeah, sometimes, or it can be whatever. It can be a disappointment. Sometimes I don't handle disappointment very well. In fact, sometimes I handle it very poorly. And just what was I gonna say? Just things like that. I react, but then my other thing is I do want it resolved. Like I'm very quick to say I'm sorry sorry and to admit, you know, what my fault was and all that. Like, you know, I behaved badly. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry I said that. You know, I wasn't thinking or, you know, whatever. So I'm very quick to want to resolve it. And it is difficult for me, whether it's Jason or a friend or whatever, if it's not resolvable, you know, very quickly. I want it to all be okay again. So Jason, I
Yeah.
would say is almost you're a little conflict avoidant.
Okay.
You don't think so?
No, it's probably true. I don't really.
I mean, you don't like
I would
it.
prefer not to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
in
yeah.
conflict for
Yeah, but
sure.
and I didn't mean that in a negative way either. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But that's totally our families. Like
Yeah.
your family are not. They're
Yeah.
not conflict makers.
Yeah.
My
Nobody was yelling in my house growing up.
No, and at my house, mine and my dad was not a yeller at all, and even my mom. But I mean, my family was much more of a reactive. There might be some drama sometimes, but then everybody gets back to normal. You know, people didn't hold grudges, but
Yeah.
there was some craziness a little.
No, it's okay. You know, each family's different, and I don't think either way is right or wrong. It's just different.
Well, both ways are wrong if you don't handle it right. You know, yeah. So
Both ways are right if you do.
correct. Well, could be. Both ways are wrong if you like. I mean, if you avoid conflict to the point that it never gets, you know, it never
Yeah.
gets
Yeah.
worked
Yeah.
out, you know, then that's not healthy. And if you are so reactive that you know life is a freaking minefield, that is not productive.
Yeah. Are we drifting off of emotional intelligence or?
I don't know, man. We're just
Yeah,
talking.
we have a hell of a time staying on topic, but
Well, no, listen, does it have to be that? So what we were talking about is, and I agree with, you know, we were talking about how I think it's, you know, if people are kind of on the same, you know, in the same, you know, level, in the same realm of emotional intelligence, that's best. And if they're not, you have a problem.
I think it's something you can learn. I mean, if you're willing to, and if people just realized how important.
Yeah, how well
emotional
does this come
intelligence-
across though as a man? I'm just like you happen to be. If a wife says to her husband, "Honey, I just don't feel like you're very emotionally intelligent." I think we need to work on this a little bit in our relationship. I far surpass you in my level, and you're in our levels of emotion. We're not in the same range. No, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if I would recommend approaching anybody that way. Yeah, what they should do is guide them to watch the Julie and the Painter show.
you think that's it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
but I mean, really, how do, and that is the problem. And I think I do see that a lot. Yeah. Especially with younger couples. How do you say, you know what, we have, you know, I just don't feel like, I don't know how you can bring that up to another person. I don't feel like you have a very good self awareness. I don't think that you are very emotionally intuitive about my feelings or our relationship. I mean, I don't, obviously, you wouldn't say that, but how do you guide your partner to wanting to have a higher level of emotional understanding?
I mean, that's a difficult, but I think that, you know, one option would be just to not attack and say, hey, I'm better than you at this, but just bring up the subject of emotional intelligence and say, hey, have you ever heard of this? And, you know, here's what it's about, and just start talking about it. I had never heard of emotional intelligence until I found myself in a class on the subject at work. And just reviewing the material, I realized that, you know, this can be pretty powerful because the truth is it's powerful in a professional environment as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very much so in a marriage. But,
Oh, it's powerful in any relationship. I agree.
but even in a meeting room at work, you know, being perceptive of people's emotions and what their triggers are and where they're moving in their headspace is very powerful.
It's more difficult, I think. Even more difficult because you don't know all the things.
And
Yeah.
it might be, and I think probably the class I was in was more focused in that realm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Speaking of that class, I just remembered there's a component of emotional intelligence that we haven't talked about, and that's body language and being able to
Yes.
interpret your partner's body language to say, oh, I can tell she's tense right now. She's not liking what's going on here, or she's loving it or whatever, just by, you know, posture, face gestures, you know, if your arms are folded or, you know, basically, you know, body language that gives away the emotions. You know?
Well, yeah, like rolling your eyes.
Yeah, you had to bring that up. I get accused of that one a lot.
Well, you do it sometimes,
Yeah.
but it is just part of your.
It's a bad habit for me. I need to stop doing it.
No, people have jokingly. I've gone to a lot of support groups and things. I have we have a child with a disability, and sometimes those meetings, any meeting, honestly, that's a bad example. Let me just say that's a bad example. Let me give a better example. We do digress, but How many of you, maybe this could be a good short, honey, I don't know. How many of you have been to like a child's meeting? Say it's okay, my child was in the marching band. We go to a freaking marching band meeting, or my son played tennis. We went to the tennis meeting. Those meetings you go to at the beginning that should last like 5 minutes, but they last like an hour and a half because parents ask stupid questions. And literally you're just like, they give you a piece of paper about shit, tell you everything you need to know on this piece of paper, and still people ask questions. It's like, well, what do we do if it's raining and I call Barbara on the phone tree and she doesn't answer? Well, fucking use your brain. I don't know, but we don't need to spend 10 minutes here talking about it. Maybe call the next person or figure it out. Use some problem solving skills. This does not require any sort of upper level degree. We don't even need to have a meeting. Honestly, they could have put this in my son's fucking backpack and I wouldn't have had to waste my Tuesday night here with you people. How many of you have ever sat through meetings where it was just so hard? Like literally the next person, and Jason will laugh. I did this. I can get so impatient. I will literally be like shaking my head, like,
Yeah.
I'm so not able to hide how disgusted I am with people.
I just made the connection with what this has to do with body language. I get it now.
You get it? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes it is so hard for me to hide. I'm just like,
I think we also discovered another one of your triggers.
I hate stupid questions. When people say there's no such thing as a stupid question. Yes, there is. They're so fucking wrong. I'm sorry with my language. They're so wrong. There is such thing as a stupid question. And when you ask one, I'm probably going to roll my eyes or shake my head. Aren't you sometimes in work meetings where you're like, dear Lord, are you guys not, are we not able to just leave it here? And
yeah. I'm a little more tolerant than you are, but it happens all the time. I mean, that happens almost every day, that a meeting will just drag on and on. And I mean, some of these meetings could be handled with a simple email.
Right, yeah.
And it lasts 45 minutes. I mean, and it's painful to sit through it.
No, yeah, that is one of the, email has its limitations, but,
yeah.
I had this attorney when I was going through my stuff with school for Alec, and, her whole philosophy was totally like, I'm not going to talk to you on the phone, because what she learned was that emotional parents will keep you on the phone for 30 minutes for something that could be answered in a 2-sentence email. They want to talk about their problems. They want to talk about, so she was always like very, very hesitant to talk to anybody on the phone, which drove me crazy, but I understood it probably saved me a lot of money.
Yeah, because they bill by the minute on those phone calls.
Yeah. So what were we talking about before that, honey?
You got me off track there.
No.
We were talking about body language, and then we morphed into that.
I know, but there was something particularly that about work meetings and stuff. Yeah. That's the other thing I hate about questioners. I hate, this happens in school a lot, and I haven't been in school for a long time, but I hate it when people ask questions just to make themselves seem smarter, like they're
or look important,
or look
engaged,
and you're just like, nobody. This is such a. It would always drive me crazy.
Well, some people just want to be heard, and they're speaking just to be heard, to seem like part of what's going on.
Yeah, and I also hate the brown nosers. Yeah,
brown nosers.
Yeah, the people that are like, well, I think we should tell Coach so and so that we really appreciate him putting this shit together and making this phone tree, and just whatever. You're just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Oh, my brush went. I was trying to, why? Because I thought. You guys can tell me if this is accurate. I thought if I moved my straps over just a little bit that it would make my arms look less fat. You can let me know what you think.
Oh my gosh.
That's why we have so much fun together. Yeah. No, but this whole emotional intelligence thing, hopefully we can just take that whole question thing out of the middle and come right back to it, honey.
Yep.
I do think I think what you do is just kind of start doing it. If you're not on the same level, I think you can't just be like, hey, we're going to work on this, but you can say, hey, I think I'd feel better if we talked about things a little bit more, or just start trying to educate your partner on, this is, I react this way sometimes, I think because of this, or this made me feel, more hurt than it should have. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit, and hopefully they'll be responsive. And the other thing is using some of those little things that we do that they just bring up, like those little card games with questions or things like that, or just having little things that you do for fun that kind of make you you focus on being more aware and talking through things that are real, and kind of connecting. But, even if it's like, what was your favorite thing to do with your dad when you were growing up? What did you like best about your mom's cooking? Or, whatever it is, I think all those things are really good to help build connection and emotional intelligence, even,
Yeah,
It
yeah,
even helps
could
you know
be.
if there's something that I've had done those some of those things where you ask a question and the person's like, I'm not going to talk about that. Even that helps you
Mm.
know like that's clearly there's something going on
Yeah,
there.
you're
Like
pushing a button there.
yeah,
Yeah.
what's going is that why is that so hard? And I wouldn't push it right then, but it's kind of good to know and put in your little memory bank. But I do think that men aren't as aware of the concept of emotional intelligence. Do you think? I don't think that they.
I'm not sure. I can't say men or women. I don't know. But I get where you're coming from and what you're thinking. It seems like men tend to operate from a more logical, let's just get it fixed and move on mindset, and maybe think all this emotional stuff is just getting in the way.
Mm,
But we know that that's really not true. Everybody, including men, have emotions, and they're really directing a lot of their behaviors, their reactions, and what's going on in communication. So it's very powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is very powerful stuff. I think that I guess I don't because I do think it's important that people think about the differences between men and women. I mean, women are much more motivated to be like, oh, we have to have a super close relationship. We have to talk about things all the time, or we have to work through this by talking. Have we had some great emotional intelligence moments that we could, interject into our conversation? I mean, we've always, kind of worked through them because we have such a high level of emotional intelligence. But honestly, I remember talking to my therapist, when we were kind of planning to get married, or we were dating anyway, and maybe we were married because I remember talking to her about something. Because what they tell you, been through years of therapy, good therapy too. That's why I'm so emotionally intelligent. No, good therapy. Uh, Truly was good therapy, where she talks about, these things are going to come up, guaranteed. Hopefully you've learned. I mean, the same things are going to come up.
What are you referring to? These things are going to come up.
Your triggers, issues in relationships, trying to figure out, how to, triggers. Let's just say that triggers,
Okay.
because that's basically,
Okay.
there's going to be things that come up in your relationship, in your new relationship when we were, that are going to bring up some of these triggers, and maybe it's bring up some of these triggers, or because they're anyone who's the getting the love you want. Harville Hendricks talks about how you replay these unmet needs, over and over again throughout your life, and try to have them met, by your current partner. And if you don't learn kind of from things and figure out how to do it, the same problem will just continue to exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So
It
that's
does.
so when I say when she says these things are going to come up, that's I guess what I mean is those kind of unmet needs from my childhood or whatever my typical relationship issues are that make relationships, challenging because they're or make relationships aren't really challenging for me, but you know what I'm saying. So she says, these things are going to come up, and Jason and I did have this one pretty early in our relationship thing. I won't get into too many details. It was actually kind of silly, but not silly, but I remember when I told her about it, she was like, I mean, there's your example. Like you had a thing, this thing came up, these things happened. Clearly there were some triggers involved on both sides, but you worked through it in a really healthy way. And we did. It was resolved within a couple of hours. And I was able to say, first of all, why were you upset with me? And he was able to tell me. And then, when you did this, which he left the house, and it wasn't like he stormed out or anything. It was just, you just went, but it made me feel very like, and I was like, I don't like that. Like, don't leave when you're upset like that. That makes me feel very insecure. And you were very like, yeah, and you've never done it since. I mean, like
Yeah, no, I understood. Once I realized that that was a real trigger for you, and not only that, but I learned why your history that led to that being very problematic for you in your mind. Yeah, I don't want to upset you, so I adjusted my behavior. If you got a chuckle out of the show or just made it to the end without cringing, give us a like and hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment. Tell us what hit home, what made you laugh, or what Julie should apologize for next. And if you really love us, share the episode with a friend who needs a laugh. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time on Julie and the Painter.